I think we can get started, and we are going to the session is getting recorded, so if someone misses it, they can always go back and rewatch it.
Yeah, I think Mr. Omar is sending them to the new link here. So
Yeah,
there won't be an issue, inshallah.
inshallah.
So, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I shall welcome you all, dear audience, the College of Arts and Sciences at the University of Nizwa, represented by the Department of Education and Cultural Studies in collaboration with GEG Oman and Marsis as Google for Education partner, is delighted to welcome you all to this interactive workshop titled Employing AI in Scientific Research. This workshop actually comes at a time when artificial intelligence is rapidly transforming how research is conducted, analyzed, and even communicated. It aims to provide participants with practical insights into how AI tools can be meaningfully and ethically integrated into research or the research process, enhancing both efficiency and innovation. Today, we are really pleased to host this session with us, Mr. Murtaza Sainarwala, an Education Solutions Manager at Marsis and a Google for Education Specialist. And actually, Mr. Murtaza's CV is quite long and his expertise is really very valuable one. He brings extensive experience in bridging pedagogy with technology, working closely with educational institutions to design future-ready learning environments. His expertise spans artificial intelligence, STEM education, and digital transformation, particularly within K-12 contexts, making him well-positioned to offer both practical and forward-looking perspectives. We look forward today to an engaging and thought-provoking session, and we hope this workshop will inspire new ways of leveraging AI to enrich scientific research and academic practice. The floor is yours, Mr. Murtaza, and I hope that you will dedicate some time at the end of this workshop for open questions to the audience. Thank you all for coming today, and please, Mr. Murtaza, go ahead with your workshop. The floor is yours. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, and thank you everyone for joining in. We are a small group of 22, so please feel free to ask questions on the go, and I'm more than happy to answer them if I can, or I will come back to you with an answer once I've been able to connect with the relevant people. I just want to start with a quick poll. Uh, how many of us are comfortable with Google AI tools, which is Gemini and NotebookLM? So on a scale of 1 to 5, where 1 is quite new to 5 that you're an expert. If you go to the top right, 3.5, that's pretty accurate. Thank you, Ms. Noor. Oh, so we are all at 4. So I'm assuming NotebookLM and Gemini are already your favorite tools. But if I had to ask you, which is your favorite AI tool, what would be your top pick? ChatGPT, okay. Interesting. Gemini. Okay. So we have a lot of ChatGPT fans, and for me, even I used to be a big ChatGPT fan, but moving with Google Education, especially uh, Gemini and Notebook LM is has been a game changer for me in terms of usage. Uh, so let's start. I could see couple of Notebook LMs and ChatGPT. What 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 would be the difference? Why does Google actually have two AI tools, Gemini and Notebook LM? Why are there two AI tools? Anyone would like to unmute and try to explain their point of view?
I think it's just ownership. Gemini
Okay.
is owned by Google, and the other one is I forgot the name. It starts with A. Chat
So,
GPT starts with A, right? Uh I can't
okay.
remember the owner,
So
but intelligence,
let me
right?
break this down for you. So there are basically three companies which have their own large language models, right? So you have Google, which has Gemini as a large language model. Then you have Anthropic, which owns Claude, which is a very popular large language model, very strong in terms of coding. They have released Cowork. It's also very good at for writing. And then you have OpenAI, which owns ChatGPT, and then you have wrapper tools around all of these, right? So Copilot is actually a wrapper around OpenAI ChatGPT. You also had one more, which is Manus, which was recently taken over by uh, Meta, and then things like Gamma AI. That's a wrapper tool around one of the large language models. Now, from Gemini itself, there are Gemini. Google has two AI applications. One is Gemini as an app, and then is Notebook LM as a separate AI tool. Uh, I would like to understand from, because I could see a lot of people have mentioned Notebook LM and Gemini and ChatGPT. What do you find the difference between Notebook LM and ChatGPT? Especially from a educator's perspective, from a university faculty perspective. Anyone would like to unmute and try? No. So I'll start off by, I'm not sure if anyone has been able to keep themselves updated with Google's blog. So they have a blog called The Keyword, where they keep updating latest news, and this is right off the press from today, where they talk about Deep Research Max, a step to autonomous research agents, right? And it's a really interesting article on what they have mentioned about deep research in Gemini and the research configuration. So I will put this in the chat for everyone to have a read of it later. But kind of looks at different kind of AI models, including humanities last exam as a benchmark test, and then looking at MCP, which was made popular mostly by Claude, and then looking at real world experts in terms of where deep research works. So deep research is very unique to Google. Uh, Thank you, Miss Al Haura. Uh, okay, to answer your question, in terms of answer my question on Gemini and Notebook LM, the basic fundamental difference is Gemini works on ungrounded sources mostly. There are ways to make it grounded in research or grounded in context, but mostly it works on ungrounded content. While Notebook LM is primarily used with grounded content. So that's the difference between the two tools. And then what output it produces then varies based on that. So let me start off by firstly sharing this quick presentation. So what I'll do is I'll put this presentation link in the chat. It's it shows 50 different ways on how higher education community can use different AI tools, as faculty members, from the administration staff, and even from the students perspective. uh, we'll not be able to cover all of that, but if you look at, these are the basic two tools, right? So you have Gemini, which I said is more on the ungrounded perspective, and then you have NotebookLM, which is from the grounded perspective. uh, Gemini is what I would say is very comparable to your ChatGPT or all of those models. Now, if I ask prompt, and we'll not be able to cover prompt engineering for today. I'll share at the end about Gemini Academy where we go into details with that. But let me try. I'm 14-year-old. Okay, let's do, yeah, university. So let's do a 19-year-old female student trying to lose weight. So I've tried to write this prompt. Uh, Can you unmute and let me know what do you think is wrong about this prompt, or how could this prompt be analyzed from a faculty perspective? Anyone? So I've written, I'm a
There's
14.
there are no instructions for ChatGPT to, not ChatGPT, Gemini
Yeah,
to,
Gemini. Yeah, sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
to talk about or to solve or to answer.
Okay. Thank you. Uh, so you could add instructions like more details on BMI and what how much weight I'm trying to lose weight. Yes. Thank you for that. Anything else we could add?
You can also add the food. For example, it is veg or non-veg.
Okay. Yeah. So what kind of diet am I looking at
Yes.
to get a more personalized plan? Yes.
And
Okay.
also we have to give our lifestyle, means how we are doing, means which time we are doing exercise, what is the which time we are eating, etc. Means we have to give our life style.
Yeah. True. Okay. So lifestyle details, all of that. Yes, definitely. Anyone else? For me, before I even go into prompt engineering, for me the first thought is, why is the student actually asking such questions to an AI tool? Okay, what is the student going through? Mental discomfort? What was she body shamed? Why is she even trying to lose weight? Right. So unfortunately, AI has become one of the tools where a lot of humanity is going for medical advice. A lot of humanity is going for emotional companionship, uh, in terms of asking emotional advices to, and trying to use AI as a counselor. So my first question is that, and that that could be very alarming. Now, when you look at the way Google's Gemini is designed, especially for education and students, you will not be able to log into Gemini without signing in to your account. Now, how is this relevant, right? So if I go and I open up ChatGPT, I could actually have this conversation with ChatGPT without logging in or signing in. But Gemini will not allow you to do that. Okay, especially when you're in an education account, you will not be able to then even delete chats from there for safety and safeguarding purposes, both for teachers as well as students. Now, let me go ahead and ask this prompt there, right? Now, this is very important from an ethics point of view. If if you ask a question to the same question to ChatGPT, then to Gemini from a personal ID, and then Gemini to an education ID, it puts different guardrails based on when whether that account is educational, whether that account is personal. And ChatGPT, Sam Altman has very clearly said that they are not going to be moral polices of the world. So they will have explicit content available, which could be R-rated, but they will not have any guardrails for education. So now it comes up with this kind with a very generic answer as expected. What's important is at the bottom over here when you see on the three dots, I can click on the three dots and I can click on double check for responses. Now, as soon as I click on double check for responses, you will have Gemini evaluate its statement and prepare a result, right? So if I click on understand the result, it gives me a traffic signals of how the result is. So as we know, AI tools are primarily trained on one is scientific resources, journals, and websites. But there is a huge training data which has come from Reddit and personal blogs, which might be accurate, which might not be accurate, right? There has been research where software companies have gone and started 30 to 40 organic Reddit posts to then, when you ask about okay, what is the best SaaS software for medical equipments, uh, it starts recommending that because it sees a lot of Reddit posts coming in. So understanding the results and how because this is the future of search. This is where we are moving to. So understanding that results, understanding how the AI is actually recommending and answering is very important from an education and research perspective. So you could see green is what it is already found similar. Then you have red or orange, which is relevant, but it's a link is provided if available. And then there is non-highlighted content, which you have to take with a pinch of salt. Right. So if I go and I go up, you could see I can click on any place where there is green, and I can see where that link, where that content is generated from. So this was more on the first part of ethics and how Gemini works. If anyone is interested, please do go and read about Learn LM. So Learn LM is what the education model of Gemini is. What Google did is they took Gemini and they fine-tuned that to the science of learning principles inside Gemini. And these are inspiring active learning, managing cognitive load, adapting to learner, curiosity, and metacognition. So all of that was embedded into Learn LM, and that's what powers Notebook LM and Gemini for education. Now let's look at an application of that. So on Gemini, there is a tool under the options at the bottom called Tools. You have a option which is called Guided Learning, and this is where Learn LM comes into effect, right? So I want to learn about abacus for early childhood. What it will do is rather than providing you a direct answer, it's now going to guide you to the learning journey. So if you ask any questions, it's now then going to help you learn that particular concept and do that, right? So if I go to learn guided learning and say what is 1 plus 1, rather than answering that, it's now going to help me understand how do you actually do an addition of 1 plus 1, be it via geometry, by doing a mathematical proof, or even looking at the language of computing. But rather than giving a direct answer, it's providing me these different pathways to learn. Any questions about guided learning? Now, let's switch over to NotebookLM. So, NotebookLM, the way it works is you have sources on your left hand side, then you have a chat window in the center, and you have your studio available on your right. Right? What's the difference is the AI is actually trained on your sources which are uploaded over here. So if you upload your research papers, if you upload your notes which you've taken from research book, or you're comparing gaps in your syllabus, it will not get trained on any of the internet data. It's going to only train on these sources and then allow you to have a conversation with that. So I'm going to put this notebook also in the chat for everyone. So now based on this, I can go and ask a question. Okay, what is the benefit of Notebook LM? It's now going to give me the answer, which is based on my sources. And this is very unique to Notebook LM, and it's very useful from an educational lens. It also then provides me not just with the answer, but with the citation of where it has actually found that particular context. So if I click on the number 4, it's going to actually open up the source guide for me and point to me from where that particular source was actually taken from. Right. So if I go down and say, look at 14, it's going to go here and say, okay, this is where it's taken the source from. And I can go and click on view source, and then it's going to take me to that source. That's very important for this. So now if I go and ask this particular notebook, what is the definition of algebra, it's going to come back with me and say, I'm sorry, it's not a part of my sources. This particular notebook consists of notebook LM as a tool. Now let's look at it from an educational lens. And so let's go to, imagine you have uploaded your curriculum for the topic you teach. So this is a whole grade 10 physics curriculum, which has all the lessons which are uploaded. And then I can go and let me take one from higher education. So this one has all the sources which are for business management studies which are uploaded, right? I can then go on the right and create resources for these particular sources. So if I go to video introduction, it allows me to create a blueprint of business
Owners.
video
The
introduction.
choice you make here has massive consequences down the line. And the rules of the game are completely different depending on your industry. A farmer selling wheat is playing a very different game. A brand into a piece of who you are.
Now, for me, it's not just the AI video which is generated, it's the way it has presented the information. I was speaking to University of Middlesex a few months ago, and the professor there was teaching a course on master in education, and she has completely changed the way she does assessments for her students. Previously, she would give them a research work on a topic, and they would then just present it as a PDF or a document. But now they submit their research work, but they have to then come in front of the class and defend their research for 5 minutes and answer questions. So it's not about whether the students are actually using AI and deep research to actually do their work, have they actually understood their content. And this particular video overview is for me is very similar to the TEDx talk, where it shows you how to present information in a clear way, and then use voiceover to actually explain that. Mr. Hussein, I'll come to how to upload sources in a minute. So this was a video overview. Now let's look at, and I'm because I could see there were a lot of people who were
might work.
already
Understanding this stuff is
Well, it's a shortcut to being really well.
Already aware of Notebook LM and Gemini, so I'm going to go a little quick on this part.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at how companies really work, how they succeed, in this constantly changing world. Your new business textbook actually has some really powerful answers.
Oh, our listeners got something to share. Let's hear it.
What's the effect of supply and demand in business?
That is a fantastic question, and it gets right to the core of everything we're talking about.
Absolutely. Think of supply and demand as the fundamental engine of the free market. It's what's
This is very interesting because now it's not just generated an AI static audio file. It's generated a podcast between two users, but as a student or as a faculty, you can then have conversations with that notebook. So you can ask critical thinking questions, and you can dig deeper into your own content with these podcasts. Uh, the third one is to create quizzes and flashcards. And so if I go to a topic on economic quiz, and if I select it, so it's takes me to a question. It gives me an answer. Okay, so I've got the answer wrong. It explains me why I've got it wrong. What was the right answer? But I could go one step deeper. I could click on explain, and it's now going to explain me why did I get the answer wrong and what was the correct way of thinking about the answer based on the resources which I've uploaded. So it's now going to lead me to the correct chapter, the place in the correct chapter with the citations for me to understand the complete concept and answer. And this is very powerful as a student. Now let's come to creating a notebook. Right. So once I go to a blank notebook, it will allow me to upload my sources. So you can upload sources from your laptop, from your drive. You can hyperlink websites. You can have copied texts from your notes. You can upload EPUBs, books, so on. Can I have a volunteer, Mr. Hussein? Do you want to volunteer on a topic? Mr. Hussein Ali Abdul Qadir, or anyone else who could unmute and volunteer? Miss Catherine, do you want to volunteer? Is it okay? If no, hedging. Okay. So that's a topic. Miss Anshu, could you give me a little more detail on that topic?
How to hedge using futures contract.
How to hedge using teacher's contract.
Future, FUTURE. I'll type also.
And this is a so ideally you would upload resources in this part from your computer, but since I do not have resource, I've done a quick fast research about this topic in on the internet, and I've found these 10 different sources based on a quick fast search. I can import these sources in my notebook, and I could then say, okay, from these sources which I found on the internet, I do not want to have this particular source, so I could remove this source from my notebook. And then my AI is getting trained only on these particular 10 sources, right? Now I can have conversations with this particular notebook Okay, if I go to the settings of the notebook, I can make this as a learning guide for my students. I can add custom rules on the conversation. So, okay, customize the style to have respond like a PhD level students, or respond as if you're teaching this concept to a 5-year-old. Okay, and how do you want your answers to be responded for the students? Now, this is very important because when you share this notebook with your students, they'll be able to have of communication and view access to this particular notebook, both the chat as well as the studio overview. So we looked at audio overview, but we can also create slide decks. We can create mind maps. We can create reports. So that means study guides, briefing documents. I could go to study guides and try to generate a study guides from there. Yeah. So that's Miss Catherine. I did the same thing. I didn't have any documents on my laptop on hedging future contracts, so I went and I asked NotebookLM to actually fetch those resources for me. But once the resources are fetched, then it basically uses uh, these resources as the training data. Right. So here you go. That's a mind map which is generated based on the 9 sources. You can then generate quizzes for the students. Is there a question, Mr. Anju, you want to ask about hedging on future contracts to this particular notebook? Now, what's interesting is you can do two other things with this notebook, right? So we looked at sources, but you can go to add sources and you can then add additional sources which you want for this particular notebook. What you can also do is once you have created your notebook and you have created your source files, you can go to Gemini and then add a notebook inside Gemini. So then you can add notebook LM files or notebooks inside Gemini, which will allow it to then refer to your own content and your own notes from that particular notebook itself. So if I so I can add this and say, okay. Now a quick tip for when you are using Notebook LM. Yes, you can upload PDF files, you can upload different kinds of materials, but One of my best source material to actually upload is Google Docs on this notebook, because you will not need to retrain and re-upload files if you have made changes on that. So imagine if it's a working document where you are doing a research on hedging future forward, using future forward method, uh, and you're looking through 20 different research papers for your work, and you have a Google Doc, which is where you add all your notes imported from Zoreto or anywhere. Once you upload that particular Google Doc, it becomes a live training document for the notebook, so you don't need to re-upload things. As in, more you upload more notes on your Google Doc, it is going to get trained on that. The other is, if you want to have a sequence of how you have uploaded your resources, it takes alphanumeric. So you can say unit 01, unit 02, unit 03, and it's going to then follow that sequence. So that's a quick tip on when you want to organize your research, because that's where, for today's theme in terms of research, uh, the biggest challenge which I've seen from PhD professors and those who are completing their doctorate work is, we do have tens and hundreds of research papers and notes. How can we then collate them to actually find our own research insights in an easier way, to find the gaps between our hypothesis and the evidence which you have collected. So once you upload all of that, you can then ask notebook to actually analyze from multiple different sources on a particular theme, right? If you had to summarize a document, you would go to Gemini or an AI tool and upload that and say, okay, summarize a document. But when you want to find out the underlying theme, the commonalities, or okay, what these are the 20 research work on play-based learning, what were the different study methods which were used? And that's where NotebookLM excels in terms of giving answers. The slide deck infographic does take a little while. So make sure that you have, if you're using it in the classroom, you create these resources pre-hand and then uh, share that with your teachers, with your students. Any questions still here before I move to the next part? Uh, Sorry, I'm not sure about clear policy for AI tools for research purpose students at the University of Nisba. Sorry, Mr. Mohammed, I'm not sure about that answer. But I think Mr. Mohammed or someone else from the university could help you answer that.
Yes, Murtaza. Yeah, we are working on a policy on policy. It is still a draft, and inshallah, once it's approved, it will be published to everybody. We are still working on an AI policy for University of Nizam, but still not approved. Yes.
Thank you. Just to summarize what Notebook LM can do, so you can upload all of these different kinds of inputs and sources, and you'll be able to generate these different outputs for yourself or for the students. Now let's come to Gemini back. So one of the most useful tools when I used to use ChatGPT was custom GPTs, right? So we have something very similar in Gemini, which is called gems. So if I go to the right hand side under gems, I will be able to go to gems and then have utilized these pre-made gems by Google or create my own gems. So let's start with the pre-made gem by Google, right? So if I go to Brainstormer, okay, this gem is being trained to give different kinds of ideas and outputs for the user. So it's now given me three different ways to for creative birthday ideas. Now, how does this help? If I go to gem, let me show this with an example. So I've created a gem which is called negotiation skills. Can Mr. Mohammed, can you volunteer for me on this particular activity? Yeah. What's Mr. Mohammed? How do you rate your negotiation skills, Mr. Mohammed?
Me?
Yes.
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe I will ask somebody when I negotiate with him, but I feel I'm good at that.
Uh, I'll put medium.
Yeah.
Okay. So now this particular gem has given me three different scenarios for negotiation, right? Which one would you want to do? A corporate hustle, a rare find, or a galactic trade?
Maybe the first one, even though
Okay.
I cannot see clearly.
Sorry, let me try to. I'll read out this. Is your brief is that you want a 15% salary increase and you want a director of operations. We are looking at the Banta framework, and you're negotiating with Sarah, the vice president of operations. So this is a scene. It's late Tuesday afternoon. Uh, she comes and says, "Thank you, Mr. Mohammed, for coming over. We have looked at your performance metrics, and they are really impressive. I wanted to sit down and discuss where to go from here." What would be your first response to this conversation? You're doing a salary increase and asking for 15% and a new promotion as a director of operations. So what would be your first answer to this?
So I am asking for an increase in salary or what?
Yes. 15% increase.
Huh?
A 15% increase in salary.
Okay, so I want to convince her or what?
Yes, convince her to give you that 15% salary rise.
I might, for example, cite some of the achievements I did recently, some of the roles I did very well recently.
And so I'm not going to go through the whole point, but you can see it's now started to play a role play with me by giving an answer. Yes, I do not dispute that. But before
Mhm.
we look at the numbers, could you tell me more about the roles you mentioned and how you have evolved? So this takes a very abstract skill like negotiation into a live role play scenario with these custom gems, right? And these custom gems can then be shared uh, between with the students, and you could then try to understand. They could actually try to understand how these scenarios play out, but also you can then train the gem to give the students a feedback on how they do, right? So if I go and ask, okay, can you give me a raise of 10,000 US dollars, it's going to say, okay, you need to uh, how make never split the difference or make it higher. So this is different use case of using gems. Which is the one? Which one is secure to use, Gemini or Copilot? Uh, that's a interesting question, Mr. Aida. There isn't any answer, but to answer from a as a Google education partner, Gemini does not train on any of your data uh, or use any of your data. Um, I'm not sure what are the Copilot terms and regulations. Copilot is a wrapper around ChatGPT, so I'm not sure about the terms and data. So how do I create gems? If I go to gems, I go to new gem. I can then give it a name. So let's do career analyst. Okay, you can write a description of what you want to do, and then you can add an introduction. Okay, act as a career counselor for first paid. I could go ahead and write this whole prompt in more details, add add a different knowledge base. But what I can do is I can use Gemini to actually rewrite the whole instruction and the prompt. So now it's Gemini is going to analyze my instruction, and then it's now created a whole detailed prompt on how what does this particular career analysis do, right? So it's designed for first grade students or sort of first grade students, looked at behavior trends, engagement, overall tone, and so on. And then I could add maybe a list of university courses which are available in the knowledge base, right? And then save this and then share this with the students to actually have an interaction with this. Now, the last one which I want to talk about is using Canvas. So Gemini also helps you to create images, music, slides, uh, infographics, and so on. So I could go to Canvas and say, help me visualize double slit experiment. So now it's going to open up the coding window, and don't have to worry if you're not from the coding background. Very soon it's going to convert that into a preview for you to have interactive experiment on double slit experiment. Now you can go and you can have a tweak this particular uh, okay, explain the use for the experiment to the user. You can then share this particular canvas with your users, and there are different ways to share it, copy the content, or even publish it on your own Google site by just copying the HTML code from here into and embedding that code into your websites. What I want to share now before we end is some ready to use prompts from higher education. So I'll share this website on the chat. We looked at how you can generate accurate citations instantaneously, how to uncover gaps in research and literature. So if I click on these particular gems, it will directly take me to the Gemini window with a detailed prompt to utilize in that particular scenario. Now let's look at drafting papers, right? So we had a question about AI policy about our university, I think, of use of AI tools for research papers for student University of Niswa. So let's look at that as a use case. So if I go to Canvas and write create a draft policy on use of AI tools for research purpose, the students of Niswa. Okay, I'll go. So you have different kinds of models you can use. Fast is usually for very quick answers, but then you have Thinking Pro model. Let me do thinking for this one.
Mr. Murtaza, only five
Yes,
minutes left.
correct. Yes.
If we
Yeah.
open the floor to anybody who wants to ask a question, what do you think?
Yeah, sure. Just the last example, and then I'll open it for questions. So now it's started to draft a policy for AI tools to be utilized with the students. Two very important points to know. This is an interactive document for the users. I could literally go in there and say draft policy. So I can actually type into that particular document, add and edit anything which I need to. The second is I can highlight any particular part of the policy and ask more details about this. I can click on Ask Gemini, explain the use. So now it's taken that particular document, and now for this particular required style, it's now created an explanation for me. After I've done all of this, I can then click on Create on the top and have different ways to publish this as a web page, as an infographic, or even audio output. Or I can share this, export to docs. That's going to open up this particular policy in Google Docs for me to continue my work. So that's the use of using Canvas to actually create documents, and we could do the same thing to create slide decks and then open them in Google Slides to edit them. So these were some of tools from using Google AI tools for research and innovation. And then I'm open to questions. And I'll before we end, I'll share about Gemini Academy in the last 30 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Murtaza. Now we have some time for one or two questions only because we have to finish at 9:30. So any questions from the side of the audience? Anybody would like to ask Mr. Murtaza any question about the workshop or about the tools he just explained to us? If you have any question, you can raise your hand or go ahead and just Mr. Murtaza just shared. Yes, Mr. Muhammad Hamouda.
Hello, Assalamu alaikum. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Yes.
Yeah. I just wanted to, to extend my thanks to, the University of Nizwa for organizing this workshop. Actually, as we can see, Mr. Murtaza, this is very beneficial, to students. Now, education AI tools, they are very, supporting students for research. But my question is, don't you think that students are becoming more lazy, like just copying and pasting? So when you ask AI to do everything for you, I mean, this is maybe one of the limitations or challenges we are facing. So it is just giving you an implicit message where you don't have to think. All you have to do is just to read, copy, and paste, and then submit your work. So if you have something to say about this. Thank you again. Thank you so much. I highly appreciate your workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's there has been research about brain rot and the use of AI, and that's why I started with talking about Learn LM and how AI can be used for learning. Uh, uh, to just add, there is an experiment tool which is called Learn Your Way, and if I go down to the research work on pedagogy with it, I'm going to go only to one particular example over here, right? So imagine you're teaching grade 6 or 7 students about Newton's law. What you're going to utilize AI is, one student loves to basketball, the other loves painting. The AI will create personalized text for that particular student, personalized slides, personalized quizzes, and personalized images. The student still ends up learning every action has an equal and opposite reaction. This is with the basketball analogy, this is with an image analogy. My point over here is, when I was in university or in my school, the only takeaway for me was static text, so my textbook and the notes which I've written in my notebook. Today, AI gives the students multimodal learning capacity, right? So they can learn via podcast, they can learn via video overview, they can they get analogies and explanations which they can correlate with, and I think that's where the power of AI is. And to answer your question about learning rot and make life easier, uh, technology is there to make our life easier, and that's where tools like guided learning, NotebookLM, can then be utilized to improve learning and improve the understanding of our content and context.
Thank you, Mr. Murtaza. We will take one more question from the chat. If you can,
What
what
are the
are the
most
most
practical?
practical uses of Gemini in research, and what limitations should researchers keep in mind when using it?
Thank you, Dr. Anju. The most current limitations, which we didn't cover a lot in detail, one is uh, when, especially with Gemini, is hallucinations, right? So AI is works on patterns, and they tend to hallucinate. Now, around 1,000 days before, when ChatGPT was launched, they used to hallucinate a lot. I think that's reduced significantly in the last few improvements. But what you will also notice is the rate at which these models are getting better in work. Now, what should you keep in mind is, you could practical use case, as I mentioned, uh, finding the gaps in your research work, comparing different research papers and finding the common denominator from those work, uh, contrasting different models and theories. I think those are the most practical use cases of AI tools, specifically NotebookLM in research book. But even just to collate your hundreds of notes and citations, and just to create a cohesive research paper, I think NotebookLM becomes a handy tool for that.
Thank you. Aida?
Yes, doctor. First of all, thank you, Dr. Murtaza, for this beneficial workshop. Uh, and I disagree with Mr. Muhammad Hamouda. Uh, Nowadays, no one can deny AI tools is helpful in many life aspects. Like you as a doctor or as a student, you can use it, but in ethical way, how to use it, the difference, how to use it in ethical way. So it's helpful and make life easy, as I mentioned. Nowadays, there are a lot of application that use it in studying or even and improve your language, your many things. So it depends on you how to use this AI tools. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. Haida. Thank you so much. This is
So
helpful.
I'm just sharing. This is another blog from this week itself, April 13th, where Google worked with New York University to demonstrate how to use assess future ready skills. Right. So we looked at negotiation as one example, but here you can look at the whole research report. But how can you use simulations work to actually look at things like collaborative skills, critical thinking skills, creative thinking skills for a student, and how can you personalize and measure things like conflict resolution and project management. So yeah, go ahead and read about this research paper. I will share that on the chat as well.
Thank you, Mr. Murtaza. I think we reached the end of this workshop, and as we conclude it, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and appreciation to our distinguished speaker, Mr. Murtaza, for his insightful and engaging contribution in this workshop. I would also like to thank all participants really for their active involvement and meaningful discussions, which truly enriched this session. We look forward also to welcoming you to future events and continued collaboration from the CAS, College of Arts and Sciences, represented in Department of Education and Cultural Studies. Thank you all, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And have
Can I
a good
can I
night.
add can I
Yes.
add one point? I have shared the website link for certifications, but as university faculty members, you can get certified as Gemini faculty. They have AI fellowship workshops, but you can even allow students to get certified as Google certified university students. These both your certifications are completely free, and we offer this workshop in detailed under Gemini Academy. Please get in touch with Mr. Omar or Mr. Muhammad, how we can bring Gemini Academy, which is a 5 bite-sized session of 45 minutes to your university. Thank you and have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thanks all. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.